Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here now that my two obligatory informative videos are done for the day, and they were Q&A, so you guys have 35 minutes of your questions being answered. I did those earlier today, so now that those are done, it's time for current events in the online fitness community. But today I'm going to do something a little bit different because someone brought something to my attention, and he said, hey, you could cover this. It's still in the YouTube community, but it is a little different, and that's Austin Jones. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. And you know what? I think this can be tied into the online fitness community a little bit because a lot of it has to do with a lot of young men being very, very insecure in their masculinity. And that is a real problem that we have. That's a real problem that we have today due to our men being emasculated in our society. And a lot of young men who don't have strong male role models to teach them how to be men. So yeah, it's a problem. And I think the situation with Austin Jones, and for those who don't know, I had to do a little digging. I wasn't aware of this. This is a guy who's a YouTuber. People are like, he's a big YouTuber. Well, not really. 26 million views is a pretty good chunk, but you're not going to make a living on YouTube with 26 million views spread out over the course of a decade. That's just not enough to live on. So I mean, this is he's probably a hobbyist YouTuber. Doesn't have that many videos. Big following though, with 500,000 followers. That's a pretty big following. But the guy doesn't have that many videos. And again, 26 million views spread out over a 10-year-old channel really isn't that many views in the grand scheme of things. But that being said, he has been arrested for child pornography. And when I found out about them, I'm like, oh man, what a scumbag. Let me find out what's going on. And that's not exactly what happened. It wasn't like this is a guy who went and downloaded child porn. What he is being charged with is having it on his phone because apparently this guy in the past has done this before. Okay, he's done it in the past. Back in 2015, he had an apology for asking a lot of his underage female fans. He's going to have primarily a female fan base with what he does. He sings like emo, whiny, teeny bopper music, and about depression and everything else from what I could see. I went and watched about 30 minutes of his stuff to get a feel for who the guy is before I made a video, because this one I didn't want to just jump in cold without knowing a little bit about the guy's style, how he comes across on camera, his demeanor, his mannerisms, what he actually does, what he does on YouTube. Thought I would check this one out because this is outside of my genre. But there's a problem there in the past, and what he has done that's gotten him into legal trouble, and he has been formally arrested at an airport, his phone confiscated, the evidence is found on his phone. And if what they're alleging is true, he is in trouble. He's in a lot of trouble. But what he has allegedly done is ask girls who were fans of his to prove that they were his biggest fans and to post up their age in videos of them basically revealing themselves, stripping, things like that. And a lot of them, and that's what's being alleged, listed their age, and they are minors. Okay. And they're showing nudity. So he's got videos of nudity of minors who are confirming their age for him and asking them to confirm their age. Yeah, that's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. I mean, is it the same as some guy who's a pedophile having his way with 8-year-olds or 9-year-olds? No, not as bad as that, but it's pretty bad, and it's pretty illegal. So what's going on here? Why in the world would this guy who's a YouTuber be doing this stuff? You know what I think it comes down to? I see this young man, and I see him on camera. This is not a guy who's on camera much. He is very nervous on camera. You can tell because his voice sounds nervous, and he has an enormous number of jump cuts. The guy can't make a 2-minute video without 20 plus jump cuts in there, which means he's having to repeat lines over and over and over to get jump cuts to actually give a little tiny speech that's a minute long. He has to break it up into 10 segments, and he's probably said it 4 or 5 different ways trying to find one that sounds right to where he doesn't crack on the camera. Okay, he doesn't do any what I would call just raw footage of any type, so he's not comfortable in front of a camera. He's a guy who strikes me as not being particularly confident, not particularly masculine. I was surprised to find out he's 24 years old. I would have guessed he was 17 or 18 or 19. I would have guessed him in his late teens. He did not strike me in either his mannerisms or his appearance as being a grown adult male. Okay. Now that being said, that's a lot of what you see today. We see a lot of grown boys out there today. All right. That's a lot of the people who get roped into the fitness world. In fact, anyone who would have bought, what was this guy, Connor Murphy, I've been covering the last couple of days, any guy who would buy Connor Murphy's book on the puckable physique so that they could get the body they want to get girls, this is the sort of guy who I would envision buying a book like that. Okay, this is a guy who is clearly struggling to be a mature male. Okay, he sings in a genre of music pure that would reach out to teenage girls, underage girls. That also shows his depression, and apparently the guy is struggling with depression, and they're claiming that's a big part of why he did what he did, that it was partially because of his depression and everything else. I don't necessarily buy that is his depression. I think it's a fact that you have a man who isn't confident in his manhood, isn't confident in his masculinity, clearly has created a persona and a genre of music that he does to reach out to teenage girls. I think this is a young man who isn't comfortable as an adult man. He isn't confident in his masculinity, isn't confident in his ability to approach or engage grown women. Therefore, because of his lack of confidence in his masculinity, he is attracted to and reaching out to underage girls due to his own emasculated nature. Because he doesn't strike me as masculine. And people say, oh, that's just a silly gender bias. No, it's not. In fact, there's a lot to that. In fact, men who aren't confident in their own masculinity struggle oftentimes with their inability to get women. And that's the reality. Don't let television fool you that women want the unmanly guy. They really don't. The unmanly guy, that's the guy who's just like a brother to me. Okay, that's the guy who gets friend-zoned. All right? That's the guy who gets friend-zoned. The guy who's not confident, not masculine, doesn't know how to approach a woman. So he ends up being a friend of a woman instead of getting his foot in the door as someone who's a potential suitor. Okay? You know, and that's exactly oftentimes the sort of guy the online fitness world tries to pimp products to. Young men who are insecure in their masculinity, so they try to work on their bodies in order to build some confidence and build some manhood. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know what? Lifting weights can improve confidence. Lifting weights can make you physically stronger. Being physically strong is part of masculinity. But the problem is that, again, you see a lot of young men, they don't know how to be men. They're searching for something to teach them to be a man because they don't understand it. They've been raised by women, don't have strong male role models. They've got a society telling them that gender is fluid. And you see young men like this guy right here, Austin Jones. This is the sort of person you get. This is what you get from that. You get young men who aren't confident enough in their own sexuality, in their own masculinity, to approach and attract grown women. So what do they turn to? Teenage girls on the internet. Okay, teenage girls on the internet. That's sad. That's sad because, you know, in the grand scheme of things, did he harm anyone with what he was doing? No. But is it acceptable? No. And is it legal? No, it's not. What he did is socially unacceptable, and we have laws in place because of that. You know, and he again took advantage of teenage girls. All right, took advantage of underage girls. Not directly, he didn't physically touch them, but he took advantage of them. Okay, he took advantage of them. And the problem is that that's how a lot of pedophiles do end up starting. Okay, you get a lot of pedophiles who do that because they don't always know how to handle grown women. And that's not the case of all pedophiles. There are a lot of pedophiles who are married. Okay, there are a lot of pedophiles who are 30, 40, 50 years old who are married, but a lot of them aren't. And they're guys like this. They start out, they're not able to confidently attract or engage adult women. So then they turn to underage girls. Now that's a different type. That's a different type in the guy who is older, married, everything else, and preys on younger children. You know, you talk about prepubescent children, but this is still socially unacceptable. It's a different form of it. It's the guys who are attracted to younger underage girls because they can't handle real women. It's a very sad state of affairs. All right, and then that's the reason, is that this is the sort of nonsense we get when our young men are emasculated. You get man children like this who are still little boys, lack confidence, and then they end up asking teenage girls on the internet to strip for them. In a way, I feel bad for him. I feel bad for him in the situation that he's in, because I don't think he thought he was going to get in trouble. I don't think he thought what he was doing was anything wrong. But the fact of the matter is, I'm pretty sure, depending upon where he lived and where that happened, probably going to be a felony. All right, and just from what it sounds like that I saw on CNN, CNN's website had a story on it. If what CNN is saying is true, he's got a real strong chance of losing this case. So, worst case for this guy, he could end up going to prison for this. And then he's going to be in prison for having child porn. All right? He's not going to be treated very well in prison, especially being a skinny, a masculine pretty boy who's in prison for child porn. He's not going to have a nice couple of years if that happens. Not going to have a nice couple of years. And like I said, this is one of those where I'm not sitting there going, oh, this piece of human garbage. I actually feel bad for the guy, because this is a guy who's just sheer lack of confidence and sheer lack of masculinity and lack of confidence in himself as a man has put him into one hell of a situation. And it's a situation that's about to have some major real world consequences for him. And that's the thing that people need to remember. A lot of times people do stuff on the internet because they think because it's on the internet, it's not real, it doesn't count, it doesn't mean anything. Guys, you can find yourself in a world of trouble for the things that you think you're getting away with on the internet. Okay? That's just reality. You'd be surprised. Even legal trouble, Everything leaves a digital fingerprint these days. So, yeah, and again, this is, my perfect example of why it is important for us to teach men how to be men. So they don't end up like this guy. Because this is exactly the sort of stuff that it leads to. And that's just how I feel about it. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.